Good morning, friends. Hello. Hello to you. I hope. Hello, hello. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Hope you are well. That this day is treating you with some joy and goodness in it. Hope you're grand. This is, by my calendar and my calculating, this is the last day of summer today. That tomorrow is actually the first day of fall. I've seen conflicting things, but the little astronomy people tell me that it is that we're actually in the last day of summer. So I hope this has been a good summer for you. This has been a moment of, and that I always think these. We'll talk more about it tomorrow, but I think these moments are moments of reflection whenever we come to these times of change. Good morning, John. How are you? Hope you're doing all right. Things are good with you. Needed headlamps on our morning walk. Yes, it is. It is that time. That the dying of the light. And it's funny if you look at the the curve. It's like we're literally like that the bell. It's kind of a bell curve shape that it goes up and then it's kind of like the tides. But we're in this place where we're literally losing minutes of light a day in the weirdness of how the world works. So that's for sure. Hey, Jamie, good morning to you. Hope you're doing all right. Glad you're here. Good morning, everyone. So as we come to no tone, I literally on purpose did not do it this morning because I'm like, too much tone. But maybe there's never too much tone. I don't know. Like, right now, how would you know? Right. Hi, Jane. Good morning to you. All right. All the best. All right, friends. We're let's get going this morning. It is the 21st day of September, this last day of summer on this Wednesday, and I'm glad you're here for 11:11 and a part of this journey. I want to talk today about ritual and this notion of ritual. And one of the greatest of rituals, both from the foundation of the Christian tradition that is anchored in the Jewish tradition, is the ritual of Passover. Um, and so the the Israelites in Bible in the 12th chapter, they receive the instructions about what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to eat the lamb, they're supposed to cook the lamb, they put the blood on the doorposts, and they dress themselves as if they're ready to move and ready to go. There's all these rituals around how they are to observe the coming and the time of Passover, which of course takes its name from the exodus of the Israelite people out of Egypt, and which happened by the coming of the angel of death upon the Egyptians, and the firstborn of every Egyptian household was killed, as well as the firstborn of all livestock was killed by the angel of death, and the Israelites were passed over, thus the name. They ritualized this event. And it has been ritualized now for literally thousands of years, and that it's one of the anchoring rituals probably of the Western civilization in many ways. So, but I want you to hear how they talk about it in the 12th chapter of Exodus, because I think it has a lot to offer us in how we live out our lives today, what we're doing in the course of our living. So here is the here's what it says. It says, obey these instructions. Now, they just given them all the instructions on how they're to do it, how they're to cook the lamb, how they're to dress, all this sort of stuff, what they're to say, all these sorts of things around the ritual. It says, obey these instructions as a lasting ordinance for you and your descendants. When you enter the land that the Lord will give you, as he promised, observe this ritual. And when your children ask you, what does this ritual mean to you? Then tell them, it is the Passover sacrifice to the Lord, who passed over the houses of the Israelites in Egypt, spared our homes when he struck down the Egyptians. And then the people bowed down and worshipped. And the Israelites did just as the Lord commanded Moses and Aaron. And at midnight, the Lord struck down all the firstborn in Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh, who sat on the throne, to the firstborn of the prisoners, to who was in the dungeon, and the firstborn of the livestock as well. Pharaoh and all his officials and all the Egyptians got up during the night, and there was loud wailing in Egypt, for there was not a house without someone dead. Ouch. This is ritualized in the Passover meal. But to hear the power of what rituals actually do with the bringing of this, in the institution of this ritual, that the contention here, if you're paying close attention, the contention here is that rituals actually save your life. Rituals actually are the thing that preserves life. And not only preserves life, but preserves the life of the firstborn. Consider this. Preserves the life of the firstborn. It is our rituals that bring the next generation into being, and that preserve the life of the next generation of things. Not us who are alive now, but that which is to come, that leading edge of which is to come. It is the execution of rituals today that actually maintains and holds together the structure of things. I actually see this a lot doing memorials. That is actually we're in an age where boomers are beginning to come to the age of which they are contending with their mortality. Or perhaps they're contending with the mortality of their parents, that they're at this kind of juncture in life. And so in that, though, what you discover is that these folks, boomers by and large, making broad generalizations here, but the decline of the church attendance kind of happened on the boomer watch. Like, that was a thing that happened. And we can say church attendance continues to decline, but largely that was something that happened through that generation's, kind of hit its high water mark post, their parents were kind of the high water mark of church attendance in America. And it's been kind of this decline through them. But what you find is that when they come to either memorializing their parents or being memorialized themselves, what they will call upon are prayers and hymns that still had meaning to them, deep and long, even though maybe they haven't darkened the door of a church in 50 years. That it's really fascinating to me that that these were things that were formed in their youth, and yet they still carried them as rites and rituals of how they want to move through the world, and how they wanted to exit the world, and how that. But it actually comes to my generation, the Gen Xers, but we actually largely don't have that. Many of my Gen X colleagues didn't grow up in have that formation in youth, and so they have a different experience of what they're calling on. But the power of these rituals is not just even for us right now, but it's also for the next generation and for the leading that is to come. Now, what's the big deal with rituals? I mean, and I'm not talking about habits here, by the way. We're not talking about habits. We're talking about the way in which ritual brings life. Habits are a thing you do. for a utilitarian purpose. Brushing your teeth is a habit. Hopefully, I hope you're brushing your teeth. That oral hygiene is important. Brushing your teeth because it has a utilitarian function. A ritual, gathering around a hole in which we're going to put a dead body. It keeps the dead body from stinking up the place, but largely the function is more social, more spiritual I would contend spiritual in nature than it is utilitarian in nature. So our habits are utilitarian things. But our rituals are about accessing a higher and more perfect and more important, I think, level of existence and level of being. Because it is from the spiritual that the earthly takes its form. If you don't believe that, just look behind me. You have chandeliers, you have a beautiful bookcase, you have a lovely fireplace. All of that was conceived within the mind of a person, and conceived with an internal desire to create a thing, and then created the outside world to look like that. The things flow from the internals to the externals. It's embarrassing we have to say that at this point, but there are contentions that say there's nothing that exists beyond the material world, and that's kind of ridiculous. But understanding the flow of things, I know I'm being teachy today, but I hope it's okay. Sometimes you got to swap it up a little bit. But that the power of what these rituals bring us, and to understand that all of creation is bound in ritual. Elephants, when they awaken in the morning, will sometimes, and nobody quite knows why, and nobody quite knows when, but they will get up in the morning on first light, and they'll travel, sometimes long distances, sometimes scores and scores of miles, and to visit the bones of the matriarch of the herd of elephants that had died. That elephants will go and they will travel to the place and give homage to the bones. Now, can you say an elephant can give homage? I don't know, but there's no utilitarian function in what those elephants do when they rise early in the morning and travel many miles to go and stand amongst the bones of their ancestors. Magpies, when a magpie dies, the flock of magpies will, I know there's probably a better word for magpies. Somebody will tell me, I hope. Somebody should look that up, because it's got to be a cool, like a murder of crows. There's got to be something for magpies. But a flock of magpies will actually assemble and stand next to the body of their dead fellow magpie. This is hardwired into creation. And it's hardwired into creation to bring life, to be the thing that preserves the next generation. It preserves the next generation not because of it harnesses some sort of cosmic force. It does it because it actually harnesses us as human beings, as creatures, as created beings together, and makes order from the very chaos. I mean, this is why it's so the rituals around dying are so powerful, because of the fact that we never stare chaos in the face more often than when we are at the end of life, or the end of those lives that we care about. Or maybe when we have that dream where we are in front of a bunch of people and we're naked. Like, maybe it's that too. I don't know. But I don't know a ritual for that. So there is this way, however. And so what are the things that we get from ritual? What if when we engage in it, what is it? And is it that we encounter? Well, first, for instance, if you were to come here on a Sunday morning, One of the there are measurable things, and there are people who've done this. They've like hack people's Fitbit and stuff like that, or they probably gave them access to it. They're probably not sitting outside in a panel van trying to hack people's Fitbit. They actually do this where they wire people up and send them into different ritual spaces that they are routinely a part of, and that they will actually, and that they measure the things that happen to them physiologically. One of the things that happens is that if you spend a time in a worship space, after a little while, that everybody will begin to breathe in the same rhythmic way. In fact, and beyond breathing, your heartbeat will begin to sync. And this doesn't matter whether you're providing the worship or whether you're in the worship. It doesn't, or whether you're in the ritual or you're a part of the ritual. That actually being a part of these things actually has power to link us and to sync us up. That we actually become, when we engage in ritual, we actually become more generous, and we actually become more successful as a measurable quality within the social group. Within, we're better at our jobs, we're better at our families, we're better at, and this is not a commercial on why to go to worship. I'm just talking about worship because that's my ritual. But there are many, many, many in the world. For instance, athletes are incredibly ritualistic. You probably know this. You see that, all the superstitions, but baseball particularly being one that has all these superstitions that, if you ever saw the movie Bull Durham, there's all these things about being on a streak, and when you're on a streak and not messing with the streak and all that sort of stuff, that that all the things that encompass that are ritualized within it. And you'd think that, when they were studying this, one of the presuppositions was that they thought that, well, probably the better that they made a thought that probably the better the athlete, maybe the less ritualized they were, because they weren't relying on ritual to to kind of, the perception was that ritual was kind of a crutch or something, and so that they were more capable than maybe other athletes, and so that they didn't need to lean on the ritual so much. That was kind of that was their supposition. What it turned out in studying it was actually the opposite. It was actually the opposite. That the most successful, the most accomplished athletes, the most capable, those who are at the top of their game were actually carried the most rituals, were the ones that carried the special charm with them, that were the ones that said this special prayer before they went to the match, were the ones that wore the particular pajamas that they wanted to wear to bed the night before. Whatever the ritual was, the most ritualized athletes actually were the top athletes. That there was actually a direct relationship with how many rituals people had, what they had going on, and how successful they were, and how in the game that they played. Free throws in basketball are some of the most ritualized things in sport. You bounce the ball 3 times, not 2 times, not 1 time, not 5 times, 3 times. They look. You watch a basketball player doing a free throw that is, one of the really good free throwers. You'll see that everything they do is that they do it in a particular way, in a particular ritual. Rituals open ourselves up to life. And we're coming into one of the things I wanted to talk about, this being the last day of summer, and tomorrow we'll head into fall, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. But as we head into the last day of summer, we're coming into the ritualized season. At least there's Thanksgiving. At least there's Christmas. At least there are these things ahead of us, that these ritualized times that we can look to and we can look toward, that punctuate and make meaning, and not just make meaning. I hate that phrase. I don't know why I even used it. But that elicits the meaning out of the time in which it is set. That it elicits the meaning, it gives structure and frame to the meaning of this time that we gather. Ritual soothes our anxiety. It is a tonic to the chaos of the world. It is the bulwark against the chaos of the world. The thing about the Egyptians is they were headed into, or not the Egyptians, the Israelites, is that they were headed into one of the most tumultuous times of the whole Israelite people. They were going to spend they were going to be chased by the Egyptians, cross the Red Sea, be rescued by a miracle, and be wandering in the desert for 40 years. That they were punctuated and held and put together by their ritual of Passover that was instituted so that they would know and remember that there was a time that God had rescued them, and that there would be a time that God would rescue them again. And that Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection are inherently linked to the ritual of Passover, because it is the fulfillment of the promise. That the promise is God will always provide for you, and God will bring you home. The resurrection of Christ is the very homecoming of humanity in its ritualized form. It's why we get all fired up and dressed up on Easter, have the best smelling flowers, and if we're lucky, the church smells like bacon. All right, friends, I hope you will step into the rituals of your life. If you go to church, go to church. Keep going to church. If you have a regular dinner hour, keep the regular dinner hour with each other, even if maybe the kids aren't home anymore. If you call somebody on Saturday night or Sunday afternoon or something, make the call on a regular basis. If you have a way that you get ready for your day that offers a little prayer or a little something up, hold on to it. If you are punctuated by the great rituals of your life, there are small rituals, the rituals that we do every week, that are kind of can be dull, and even church can be boring, or that if we or the regular rituals of our days and the ways in which we prepare our life, or we prepare ourselves for a day or something like that. These small rituals that keep the wolves at bay. But then there's the large rituals of the great graduations of our life. The great, if you were a Marine, you went through the crucible, which of the time when truly of no sleep and incredible amount of hard work to go into becoming a Marine. If you were in a fraternity, you went through Hell Week, or a sorority, you went through Hell Week. That these things. Remember also these rituals that made you who you are, that brought you part of your identity. In all of this, wherever you're finding yourselves, whatever you're finding yourself in, relink with your rituals in these days. As we close out the summer rituals of sunscreen and blankets and cocktails outside, and we step into the new rituals of fall, of apple picking and pumpkin carving, and all that will come in the days ahead. As we stand in this transition place, use this time, this ending time, as a time to recommit to the rituals of your life. And maybe if you find yourself disconnected in some ways, institute some new ones. Because friends, what the 12th chapter of Exodus tells us is that our ritual life together brings us life, and life in abundance. It keeps away all that would destroy, all that would kill, all that would break us. And it holds us true and fast, and pointing our face towards the sun and towards the good and the true and the beautiful. My hope, friends, is that you will deepen your walk in your ritual lives, today. All right, friends, that's my hope for you. Peace and grace to you. We'll pick it up tomorrow in another season. We'll pick it up tomorrow in fall and with another 11:11.